All right, so Walter made it a little longer this time. How's everybody doing today? Thanks so much for being here. As always, I think I'm a little off screen. There we go. All right. Hope everybody's doing well. As I said, I'm flying solo, so everybody please behave. BB's not here. He's still doing his thing in Korea, I believe he said he was. And so here, that's me. Flash sale on the Pentatonic Creativity course, the minor edition, 50% off. You can use that link that's there. It's also in the bio or the description, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of people asked recently, that's good because it means more people are coming in, I guess, to the channel. That intro music is called Bitter End Blues, and it's recorded live at the Bitter End, and there's that link right there to the Bitter End Blues. So thanks to everybody who was here. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about delay pedals and, setting them up and how they work and all that. So I think I got this going on here. Boom. It took forever to try to not get a glare on this thing. So there we go. All right, so let's talk about delay pedals first. There might probably be if there's 3 effects that I would always really want, I can go back to this. I like reverb. I like a tuner. It's not an effect. I like probably an overdrive, depending on what the amp is, but maybe like overdrivey, boosty thing. And I really love having delay. Delay is one of my all-time kind of go-to effects, and I'll show you a bunch of ways that you can use it today that I think are really useful and common ways to do it. And we'll talk a little about placement of the delay. So I'm just running really simply today here. I've got my tuner in just because I might change guitars and need to tune it. I've got the Deep Blue Delay by Mad Professor. This is the Matt Schofield approved pedal, really great pedal. This is a clone of a Vemram Tube Screamer because I don't have a Vemram Tube Screamer and they're really expensive if you want to buy a used one. But I like this one a lot because you can dial off the bass and treble and you can really have some, it's much, I'm not a big Tube Screamer guy, but I really like this version of it. We can talk about it if you want to. I got my Jan Ray as my overdrive, which is important. And then I've got my ancient El Capistan here from the version 1 with the switches that I think are about to die at any point. You step on them and they used to click. And I have the new version, but it's on my other pedal board, so I didn't want to take it off my fancy pedal board, which I'll be showing you in a video coming up soon. So this version 1, when you tap the tempo, they're like the clicky switches, which is really annoying. They fixed it, but this is version 1. Boom. Okay, so first thing, let's have reverb on the amp. I am playing my Stratocaster into the Turok into the aux. Now the aux, I have reverb on. So I've got a clean tone. And the reason why I did this was to kind of show you how you can use delay and where it sounds best in your pedal board, or if you're using an effects loop in an amp, which I don't know anybody who does. Pro guys, can you hear Mr. Softy? Can you hear Mr. Softy out in Brooklyn? No, Mr. Softy, I don't know if you can hear it or not. So it's live. There's Mr. Softy, if you guys can hear that. All right, so delay, I like delay for a bunch of reasons. One, I play with a trio. I like to fill up a little bit more of the sound. So let's talk about my way of using delay. So here is my overdrive. I'm going to put on the delay pedal here. So a little tape marks there. Now for me, so now without that, I'm just going to let you hear the 2 different sounds. So now without that, sounds cool. Now I got it on. So it's fairly subtle the way I have it, but to me it's very noticeable when it's not on. Right? So if I'm thinking especially a bit more of a singing overdrive or solo, it just pads out the notes in a different way than a reverb does. So I've heard David Gilmour talk about this, where he uses delay as opposed to reverb, especially when playing live. Now his reasoning for that, of course, is he's playing arenas and stadiums, and I am not. So sometimes the reverb is naturally occurring in the room. And the way the delay affects your tone is different, or your sound, the way it disperses, is different to me than the way reverb does. So if I just maybe crank up reverb for a sec, or on the front of the amp, hold on. You know, sort of a splashy thing, that's a spring sound, so it's going to have a much different effect than I'm going to turn off the reverb in the aux so you can hear what it sounds like without. Here's the reverb. It's fake reverb, but so it's off, right? Super dry, but if I put on the delay now, right? So that the delay how you set it can have a reverb-esque quality that sometimes doesn't get the splashy stuff, or especially using a spring reverb, that splashy sound. What's super important, and I'll get to any questions you guys have coming up, is how much delay you have and how bright that delay is. So for me, I really like, moving some windows around. This is a tape delay emulator. I like delays or delay pedals of any company, any kind, where I can roll off the high end. So if I want a super pristine delay sound, say like the Edge does on some of the stuff like Streets Have No Name or something like that, he does use Memory Man, but it's also like a DD3 sound in there. Somebody would probably correct me, but a lot of his things are really very bright, crisp delay. I don't really love that sound because I want something that melds into this sort of, I don't want to say murky, that's the wrong word, but something that just kind of blends in. It sounds more ambient than, oh, I'm hearing delay, if that makes sense. So I can't really brighten this one up too much, but the reason why I choose something of a tape or an analog simulation pedal or a digital delay pedal, which is totally fine because these are both not real analog pedals, one where I have control over the high cut. All right, so to me that's super important. You can get into it here with, they have it written as tape age, but there's secondary functions. You can roll off your treble, especially in the new version. Most newer delay pedals will have that feature. So I think it's one that I look for in delay. Like I said, so it smooths things out a little bit. Okay, so if I want, now normally I would have, Strymon's got a favorite switch, it's on my other pedal board, so I have two settings. This is sort of my maybe always on. Well, I'll turn it off if I'm playing like a funky rhythm. So I don't want that's gonna bounce a bit too much, so I'll turn it off. So this might be my first. And then my other preset would be about here. Dial up that tape age. So I'll have that, and then I have the preset thing where I might be having here. Right, so I have these two levels that if I want to kick into a higher delay setting, I like having the two options. Ultimately, I like having three, and I'll talk about the third one in a minute. And then my big pedal board, which I will do a rundown at one point of coming up soon, I have the Strymon multi-switch, which has 3 presets, which is enough for me with delays. All right, so I like having this one, especially if I'm playing a trio, and if I play something like something of mine, you know, turn up a. If I play that without any delay, sounds good, I think, but with the delay, you're getting this nice kind of wash that does not interfere with the music. It's not going to be up too high. You get all this kind of spillover. So it's really important that you learn how to dial it in. Word to the wise, what you dial in at home is going to be very different sounding than when you get on a gig. And this is always tricky if you don't have your time to do a sound check. Like I'll play a clip from the Bitter End the other night with Matt Schofield. It's really tough because sometimes you start playing and you plug in. If it's like, all right, you guys are up, and you do a quick sound check and you start playing. Oh man, that delay is up a little too high or a little too low. So these markers on here are just kind of general ideas for me to start. So the more volume you get, the more the delays will start to sound a little different in the way you hear them. So with anything, don't expect the way you have it dialed in at home is going to be exactly the way you're going to hear it live. You got to experiment on the gig, which is a drag sometimes, because if you're playing and you get up on stage and there's a band before you and after, you're like, hold on, let me set my delays. That can be a little annoying. And you never know until you start hitting really hard on the amp. All right, so That's my kind of standard stuff. Now the other one, my third preset, and we could talk about it over here, would be I like a bit of a slapback delay at times, and I've stolen this I stole it from Robin Ford, and I know Matt Schofield uses it. Lots of people use it. So you can use the delay, a very quick slapback, and I have it in front of my overdrive, and we'll talk about all that in a minute, or after, and it's so quick that it doesn't interfere with the delay too much, and it just thickens up the sound. So if I turn off my overdrive, if I hit this, right? I don't know how many milliseconds that is. I never go by milliseconds. Just use my ears. 116. I don't know. I was trying to look it up. People are guessing. I could have given Robin a buzz. I don't remember. But so now. Turn that up a little bit more. Get a little more effect. Really sensitive trying to get that. All right. So. So you hear that? That kind of thing. Now if I'm going to turn it off, I'm going to play it line. So like. Now if I turn it off. Hear the difference? So that quick slapback is really cool because it fattens up your sound quite a bit and it doesn't really get in the way. So that's a pretty tricky tweak depending on the pedal. And the reason why I say it's a tricky tweak is because not all potentiometers or how they made the sweep of the knob make it easy to dial that in, right? Because it's so sensitive, right? So let's turn it up. So see, I like this pedal, and I see why Matt likes it as well, because there's a nice sweep, really usable, right? And you find that spot where it lives, and then your repeats. So that's a bit too much, so oh, my tape went off here. This light on this pedal is like a laser beam, and it's just shooting like right into burning a hole in my retina. So, there we go. Pretty cool, and without it, not a bad sound, but you definitely suddenly hear that whole Matt/Robin thing. So, I've heard the guys on that pedal show talk about this, that having two delays is a ton of fun. It all comes down to pedal board space. But on my Fractal, I got an FM9, which is important to talk about. I've actually dialed it in because I have two delays because it's endless what you can do. So you could have both. So I've got the fattening of the delay up front, and I've got the ambient sort of thing over here. So I'm really sort of thinking about a slapback on this. Now, I can do this over here as well. It doesn't really fully matter. I feel like when it becomes, we're going to hit the overdrive in a second, and we're going to hear the placement of the delay is the thing that mainly gets people into trouble or can be problematic. When I was younger, I'm like, why does this sound terrible? And since the internet's been around forever, I think most people know that there's certain things about pedal placement. All right, so here's my overdrive on. Now, this is the sound of a delay after overdrive. Okay, so what you're doing, obviously, is digitally or analogically recreating the sound of your overdrive pedal, right? So or an overdriven amp. We'll talk about that effects loop thing in a minute. So here's the overdrive. So when the repeated signal it's going to copy the pre-made sound, right? So you're repeating the distorted guitar sound. So that sounds really nice to my ear, right? Now, if we go and put this in the front, you can already hear that slapback is much more pronounced. But if I want to get like more longer delay, so you hear what's kind of going on. Sounds like Alex Lifeson on All the World to Stage, right? You remember doing that kind of thing? Suddenly bring back memories. And Van Halen would sometimes do that. You put the delay in front of the amp, but what happens is you don't get, let me say, like those David Gilmour delays, where you're repeating the distorted signal. When you're pushing the repeated signal of the delay that it's pushing out is going to be fairly low level, right? Because the delays are going to be lower and they trail off. That's not enough to really power the overdrive of the overdrive. So you're repeating a weak signal. You're trying to overdrive a weaker signal as opposed to adding delay to an already distorted signal. Hope I'm explaining this well enough, if that makes sense. But you can hear the difference right away. So let's go as similar as I can get. So let's get something here. So like. Right? So I'm really kind of cranking that. So now if I go over here and get that same sort of sound. So I really have to kind of dial it in. And it's never going to get the same sort of effect that I generally like to go for when I'm looking for a longer delay. So once again, I am replicating the sound of my distorted signal because that's the way I think it functions best if you're looking for those, say, David Gilmour, John Mayer, anybody, pretty much most of those studio sounds we hear, they've added a delay on afterwards. If we want to get that really early, more 70s thing going on where amps did not have effects loops and the overdrive pedals are not what they were, you'd have the sound, and there we go, perfect. It's live. You'd have the sound of this, where this would be acting like your overdriven amplifier, and you're pushing the front end of it. And it's a cool sound. It's a very specific sound that maybe Van Halen would use at some points, and Eric Johnson uses this. Generally speaking, this is a very dark delay. I don't own any bright delays at the moment because of this reason, but the brighter the delay, too, into the front, it's going to cause more of that sort of sound. Usually the warmer, that's why Eric Johnson likes it, an echo plex, because they're darker. And he runs it into the front end of the amp sometimes. Okay, I'll get to questions in a sec then. But, so what are we trying to emulate? So let's just talk about an amp effects loop for a minute, which I tried using effects loop. Sometimes I'll put a delay in effects loop or a reverb if there's an effects loop and there's no reverb in the amp. If I'm using, say, like my Divided by 13 or these old Marshall, they don't have effects loops. So the old Marshalls have no reverb. And I like having some sort of delay or reverb. If I want to use the Marshall amp distortion, it makes using delays in the way I really like it to be used pretty tricky. Because if this is generating a distortion, let's imagine that this is my amplifier, the pedal is generating my overdrive, and I want to use this, the only way I can get delay is to put it in front of the distortion. Now, if I want to get those beautiful, long, Gilmour-like singing delay things where you can really play off of and have fun with, you can't quite do it to the effect, or it doesn't sound as pretty to me as it does if the overdrive is prior to your delay. So, amp companies, for a number of reasons, started putting in an effects loop, and I see Lyle's on here if he wants to chime in, if I correct me on anything. The effects loop generally comes between your preamp and your power amp. So the effects loop is basically like right here. You're putting your delays or reverbs, your time-based, your ambient effects after your overdrive. So effects loops and amplifiers end up doing this sort of thing that I have on the floor, that you can use your overdrive from the amplifier and then into the power amp of the amp and into the front. The only problem I have with this is it requires like this 4-cable method, where I'm going to plug in the front of my amp, then I'm going to run pedals to the front of the stage and run certain ones back into the effects loop of an amplifier and then back. You know, it requires something that I don't feel like doing. A lot of time, sometimes you get ground loops. Some people are really fast at doing it. The gigs, I just feel more comfortable doing one of two things. Usually using pedals for overdrives. I've got some really great pedals that amps, obviously, but you can kind of get them to where they're just sounding great. And there's so many great overdrive pedals, and this just allows me to have everything on the floor as easy as I want it to be. And I can control my overall volume. I don't have to worry about, is the amp loud enough to getting the overdrive that I want? There's all these sorts of things. And this is how David Gilmour runs it. He runs into a big, loud, clean high watt. So he's got a clean platform, as I would when I'm using, say, my Two-Rocks. And then I put the pedals in front of it, so I have control over the volume of everything. And I'm not relying upon the amp distortion, because if I want, some of my songs are written around these delay settings and stuff like that. And I feel like they're missing without that. Okay, so they both have their pluses and minuses. Both create certain sounds. To me, this is, if you come in front, I like the sound of this slapbacky thing. Let's hear that. I'll put the slapback on here for the overdrive. Yeah. That's a cool sound. Now, the second I boost this more, you heard how you're getting a bit more of that wash? So then you're starting to do a bit of a battle of like, okay, so I got to bring down my level. Then I turn this off, and then you lose some of the effect. So it gets pretty tricky, right? So generally the way I try to solve that, and then I have a setting, my third setting on my pedal board, this. I dial it in somewhere around here. Now, maybe a bit much, I gotta dial it in. But you see how tricky it is? You got to sit there and go back and forth to get the right amount of feedback, repeats, and the right amount of the level of delay. I don't think it sounds as great here, honestly. I think it sounds better here because of the boosty feeling. So I just deal with it over here because, or if I have two delays, I can get both of those effects. It's the when I want to boost this. So there's all ways you can start to experiment with this. Like if I put the delay over here, like reverse these two, so I'm boosting the delay. There's ways you can work around it, but everything is going to be ultimately, I feel like, some sort of compromise when you have the delay coming first. Okay? Does that make sense? I hope this is making sense. I hope everybody's hanging in. All right, so any question? Let me see what I can get here. Let's talk about a few things. Just real fast, and I'll get to questions. And please put a question mark in front and all that. That helps me sort through this because BB's not here, and he usually does that. Now, with the darker sounding delays, I just think for me they're a bit more, I just stylistically more musical to the way I play. So what I was saying about the longer ones, to, you know, when you want to get into like, you know, that kind of cool back there. Let me clean this up a little bit. We're getting a little bit of overdrive because of the aux. It's weird. You get that kind of cool stuff, and I said if you put that in the front of that, try to get that same sound. All right, well, it worked today. But you guys are getting what I'm going after. Then after I start playing, then suddenly I have that big, loud, splashy stuff going on. All right. There's all sorts of fun delay stuff that... You know, the... The old infinite repeat thing that I actually stole that from Yngwie Malmsteen years ago when I first saw him do it. I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. And Radiohead did it at the end of one tune. And it's a lot of fun. You can do it on most delays. I do like that delays do that because sometimes on live on stage, I like to maybe do that here and there because I feel like once you get comfortable with your effects, they become part of the improvisation of that night, which I think is really something to think about. Sometimes I might want to do something like that because, man, the music's getting a bit hippy-trippy. Oh, that would be awesome if I did that. Because you could also play some music. So, you can tune it, interesting enough. Now, this has this thing. Check this out. It's a great hold function that I use all the time. And I end up using that sometimes in performance because you can match the pitch with what the other guy's playing. And it just, for me, it's a lot of fun. It makes the gig more exciting in an improvisational way. All right. Any questions, everybody? Let's see what we got here. Once again, thanks for being here. If you like the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button as it helps me out immensely. Tell your friends, trying to grow the channels. Growing the channel's pretty slow. I've been told I need to do more gear demos or I need to collaborate with bigger YouTubers and all these things like that. I just don't want to really go into the gear demo world, personally. All right, so let me go back on here. Oh yeah, so and also the way help me out, buy the channel, buy that channel. Go to my channel, buy some courses. They're all really relatively affordable. So let me say hi to everybody. Hey Mino, what's up, man? How's it going? I haven't seen you on the lives that much. What's going on? Mike Gamby, David Cromwell, Jason Carter, of course, Tom Anderson, Phil Jones, Kurt Schaffenberg, everybody. Kevin Schroeder, Sean plays guitar, Louis Castro. Yeah, there's no Keith Williams here. I spoke to him earlier. He's probably still getting over his jet lag. Michael Cope, what's up, man? And everybody else. All right, so let me try to go through some questions here. Is that a decent reverb as well with the Strymon? Like the reverb in the Strymon on the, it's okay. It's okay. For me, it's kind of a bit when in need. And I like the new version of the pedal, the version 2 of this or version whatever they have it adjustable on the face. It's pretty good. It's not like having a dedicated spring, but I'll take it, you know, if I need it on a gig. And what I like about it now is this one, when there's a secret function in the earlier one of a spring in here that I have to hold down another button and turn the knob. But when I turned off the pedal, it would turn off the reverb, and I always want to keep the reverb on. The new one, I can leave the reverb on and turn off the pedal, which I like that. You can do that with this one, but then it's just not as easy. Then you have to go in. If you want to change the level of the reverb, you got to hold a second pedal and adjust it. Secondary function things just fall into the world of, I'm never going to touch that on a gig because I'll forget which one does what, you know. All right. You got delay in your amp, but you wouldn't mind getting a delay pedal. Yeah, I mean, some great, look, you've got a lot of digital amps are just awesome. So, you know. So how does the tap work? The tap, you set it to this, I got it set for 8th notes on this particular setting. So, you know, just tap it in. There's a setting here I could have it be dotted 8th notes, which would be the other one that I would normally have. Sorry, there's a quarter notes. And then the dotted eighth is that whole kind of U2-ish thing, or Pink Floyd. Okay, I've got a half dozen delays, but now the Keeley Halo has been on my board nonstop for over a year now. I have to send mine out to Mike. Yes, Mike, I know. I really loved the sound of that pedal. I found the programming of it was more than my feeble brain wanted to handle sometimes. And I think I've heard Mick at that pedal show talk about it. It was just a little bit more. It's an amazing sounding pedal. It's great. I wanted to love it, but I used it on a gig or two, and I was like, ah. And also, I've been using the El Capistan since it came out, and I just bought the new version. So I'm just so used to it. I like delay, but I don't need lots of crazy delays. So for me, I know how this thing works. With the multi-switch, I have 3 presets. It's kind of all I feel like I need. All right, so Mike Doctor. So delay into overdrive for a 70s classic rock sound, interesting, never tried that. Pretty much, yeah. I mean, those are generalizations, but that's that sound that, to me, that is pretty distinctly Joe Walsh. You hear that live, Turn to Stone, when you're the live version. You hear just that delay in the front of the amp hitting at the analog delay. This is Michael Cope. So, say you're producing a recording. Do you prefer the delay to stay in the same position in the stereo field as a source guitar? I don't know. It depends on what kind of sound I'm going for, right? I'll experiment with a bit of a stereo delay, or the delay being panned off to the side a little bit. That can sound really cool. If you're too obvious with it, sometimes it sounds very effecty, which can be really nice for the ear candy angle of things. But sometimes it's all on how you use it, right? How do you want to hear it? Do I want to hear this? Oh, that delay is coming from over here, but the guitar's over. That could be really cool. We were a little bugaboos about that stuff, which is ridiculous. Was Van Halen on those first records had the guitar panned, I don't know, left or right in the reverb in the other channel. And a kid riding around with depending what side of the car speaker you were sitting next to, all you heard was reverb. Or, my friend his speaker was broken, so we're listening to Van Halen growing up, and all I heard was reverb. So it was kind of funny. Like some of those early Cream records, or the first Jeff Beck group, where everything is kind of stereo, and he's the band's hard left and he's hard right or something, and that's pretty interesting to a modern listener. I've been noticing your red 70s headstock Strat. Is that custom shop vintage Mexico? It looks cool and sounds great. Where can I get one? It's a 1968. It's a real 1968 that's been refinned. Had a crack in the headstock. I just put new tuners on it because the original tuners had been replaced and there was holes drilled. And so, as if any of you watched the video I did with Matt Schofield on vintage guitars, this kind of falls in that category of a player's guitar. Refinished, some cosmetic issues, nothing unfixable. Has the original neck and body and parts and original pickups. So that was important to me. So it's actually a 1968, a real one. Okay, so we've got, hold on. Hold on, everybody. The TARDIS is landing. It's pretty much funny. Okay, talk about using the tap. Yeah, man, I like using the tap. Unfortunately, this one, it's got this crappy tap there. I use the tap all the time, and I have it, like I said, set to quarter notes, excuse me. So I might tap it double time. The reason why I have it this way, the reason why I like using the tap is the tempo of the song. So sometimes you just want something that's going to be a little longer. So if I think of it like that tune of mine, I like that, where it's at. See? It's in 6. Kind of got lucky where it's at. But if I were to change that tempo, right, that doesn't work for that 1, 2. So it was right around here. Right? So that does take practice to the song that you're playing on. You always want to rehearse your tunes and practice using your effects. So to me, that's important, that I would think, okay, what delay is going to kind of sit right on this tune? Also, just sometimes I want a long, slower delay. So that's where the tap tempo comes in for me. When I'm doing a show that has, say, like the David Gilmour-esque dotted eighth note, Run Like Hell, U2 dotted eighth note delay, the tap tempo is extremely important because the dotted eighth note delay so it's kind of hard to say. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so bump, 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 bump. So you got this. So if your drummer starts setting up the tune a little bit slower or faster, when I tap that in, I'm going to be locked in with that dotted eighth note delay. So that's really important, especially if you have like a rhythmic delay based upon the tempo of the tune. And that was important. So most pedals will have a dotted eighth note delay option. On the Strymon, it's a bit weird. You got to flip the switch in the middle. And you could have that as a preset. There's all sorts of ways you could do it. If I'm going to do a super heavy delay gig, which I don't really do, I would probably end up picking up something like a Timeline. But Strymon just released a new Blue Sky. So I'm assuming pretty soon, I don't know any inside information, but I'm assuming pretty soon they're going to update the Timeline. Just a thought, because they just put out a new Blue Sky. So I'm assuming, the way these companies work, that they're going to probably launch a new version of one of their most popular pedals that hasn't been upgraded in how many years? 10 years, something like that, since that thing came out? All right. I should collaborate with Eric Haugen. I would definitely do that. Where would you set the Strymon to get an overall Gilmour sound? Well, it depends on what Gilmour sound you're looking for. If you want that slap back, they Run Like Hell, That's got to be slower than that. 2, 3, 4. Right, so that, right? Not getting it. Yeah, where is it? So I can tap it in. I wanted this on the floor, but it's hard to do that. Now turn that off, guys. D minor pentatonic. Turn it back on. So that's one of those really cool tricks once you're learning. You're like, really? So it's all delay. The trick is to turn off the delay before it ends. So you don't hear that bounce button. You turn it off and it sounds like you're doing something really cool. Remember that tune, that Nuno, that Bumblebee thing you did was based upon that. Cathedral by Van Halen is based upon that same kind of delay. Have you tried stacking delays? A little bit. It all comes down to pedal board space. So usually if I'm traveling, pedal board space is at a real premium, obviously. Some of my songs are really, I don't want to say effect-based, but certain songs need tremolo. To me, the song is tremolo is part of the song. Octavia is part of the song. Delay is part of the song. So you start running into pedal board issues in terms of that. I didn't get something like the Timeline. It was just, I didn't gel with it right away when I first got one because of the presets. It was too big, not to program. I just then I used it on a tour, and I must have had a broken one, and I think Strymon makes great stuff, and the thing just kept on screwing up. So I sold it, got rid of it, because I don't know what was going on, and just went back to the El Capistan, and with the 3-pedal reminder. This repedal switch to bring back the presets. I love using boost delays on the Helix. Yep, there's all sorts of cool stuff. Okay, a trip to the UK to visit this pedal show and Anderson's, please. This also helped grow the channel. Anderson sometimes runs guest evenings with someone playing. As you much do in your YouTube channel, I would be there. Cool. I have an invitation from both. I've spoken to Mick and Dan, and when I talked to Lee at NAMM and Pete, they were like, "You gotta come let us know when you're in." So it's in the works. It's just a matter of getting over there, and I might do something where I'm teaching a bit over in England, and then that would line up with all that stuff. I also have family there, so that would be cool. My cousin's a detective in London, and my got some other cousins in England and family in Scotland. So it would be great to go over there anyway. Any excuse to go to Europe. I'm going to the Czech Republic and Austria in September, but it's too much to tie together. I'd be out of town for like a month, and I got a family. I got pets, so I'll do them in 2 different trips. All right. Are there delays in the modelers, such as the Line 6, close to the Strymon? You also get many variations of Strymon. How do you pick one? That's a great question. Yeah, the modeling delays are great. I can switch over to my Fractal if you guys want to hear and show you some of that stuff too. I think it's great. Yeah, they can sound. Let's just do that. And people are going to go, no, Fractal, what? Hold on. See, this is live. I can do this. Hold on. That's Fractal. Let me do this. Let me run a few more questions and we'll talk about that in a sec. Okay. Oh man, I love Fractal. They're like new firmware. By the way, if you buy the Fractal stuff, and I'm not sponsored by them, they update their firmware all the time for free. It's amazing. It keeps on getting better and better and for free. So I'm being a bit of a Fractal fanboy at the moment, but they're really, really good with that. So the modelers on the Line 6 are great. They're great on the Quad Cortex. They're great in the Fractal world. They're pretty great across the board now. What I usually do is just use my ears. I just go by ones like, oh, I like guys have heard talk about using a tape delay, so let me try that, or an analog, or a digital memory, Deluxe Memory Man, or something like that. But what I've done at certain times with my Fractal is I really liked my El Capistan, so I'd plug that in, and I'd have the Fractal, and I would just dial the Fractal in until I made it kind of sound as much like my El Capistan as I could. So yeah, the digital stuff is great. This is all digital, so how do you know which one to go for? Strymon has been really cool with, they do like these sort of individualized pedal, like this is a tape delay emulation, so that's cool if you want that. Digital memory, and they have the Brig sounds great, that little one. I love Strymon stuff. A lot of most guys I know love it. Just try them. Go to the store. The great thing is you can try them and try a few next to each other, and just this is the one that feels right to me. Can we go through here? Oh yeah, I heard Dwayne Eddy just passed away. Yeah, that's a bummer. So these guys are going. Everybody's getting older. The Intro to 12-inch version is Somewhere in Summertime by Simple Minds has a great dot at eighth delay. Yeah, and I'm not familiar with that one, but like I Ran by the Flock of Seagulls and tons of tunes. Most U2 tunes are based upon that. Not most, but there you go. Oh, if I only had $2,000 to spend on a guitar, what would you get? I would get some sort of PRS. If you like PRS, which I do, for that money, there is just nothing that comes close. And even for a lot less than that, the DGT SEs, it's just great. And they're inexpensive guitars, but they're not cheap guitars. If you push it, like there's the SEs and then there's the the ones that are part American made. I can't remember what that designation is. Um, the Silver Skies are great. No, the Silver Skies are more than 2,000, but the Silver Sky SEs are like $800. I mean, I've been to their factory twice and know the people there. And yes, I have an endorsement with them, but I'm not. You guys, I think, know me as well. How much do you see me playing my DGT? A lot, but you see me playing my other guitars equally as much. You may ask, why don't I own a Silver Sky? Because I have a bunch of great Strats. They're not paying me to play the guitar. You know what I mean? So, and the reason why you might have seen one or two PRSs go through my hands, I end up with my favorite one that I've come up with yet. So I'm really psyched about that. I'm designing some private stocks with my friends over at Watchtower Guitars that should be coming up in the next year or so. Some single cuts and some semi-hollows, which I'm really psyched about. But for the money, I don't think you can beat them because the consistency is really off the charts. And I think people, there's people who do not like PRS for whatever reason. Whatever. S2s. Thank you, Brett. Yeah, the S2s. They're great. So I highly recommend checking out the PRS line. For that money, you cannot beat them. I find Fender to be really, really inconsistent. You can get some great Fenders, and then the next ones are not that great, or they're set up horribly, or things like that. Whereas I found, I found the PRS, and then Al Adolphson says the S2s now come with American electronics. I was thinking that I knew that because they told me that at the factory, but it wasn't public knowledge yet. Okay, so the new S2s come with the American electronics, which is quite a nice upgrade. I knew that was coming, but I couldn't say anything. I didn't want to get like, you said what? I couldn't. Yeah. All right. So I use Amplitude for Leslie simulation on keyboards. Man, there's so many great things. Like plugins are off the charts. I mean, there's a thing called Eskier, which is just absolutely amazing. Very inexpensive. The fractal stuff, the neural stuff. It's all, at this point, it's all kind of great, right? Off topic. Thoughts on a new David Gilmour song, Piper's Call? It sounds quite Steely Dan to me. It's hard to find a bigger, well, I can't say it's hard to find a bigger David Gilmour fan to me. He's one of my main guitar players of all time. Wasn't into that tune, gotta say. I like a lot of the stuff of Rattle That Lock and On an Island, but I feel as I do with Roger, is that there's some great stuff and then there's some stuff that I just like them best together. And I know that was 40 years ago, but it's just, I think the way they balanced each other lyrically and musically, that was it, So, all right. I was going to take you over the fractal. You guys want to see what the fractal thing looks like? Hold on. Everybody's going to freak out now. There we go. All right, so hold on. Nope, that's wrong. Hold on, I got it. I can't do it on that screen. It's live, like I said. I just can't. People are going to be like, make all the left-handed comments and Matt Schofield when he was here, and I got some other cool stuff coming up with Matt video-wise, is, I love, excuse me, I love the sound. There's no sound on that? All right. Sorry. All right. See, sorry about all that. Hope I didn't lose anybody. Yeah. I was saying sometimes when you upgrade to this, the new latest software, it doesn't keep everything going back on one point. This fractal sounds great. Oh, there we go. There's the comments. All right, so here's a fractal. Here's my delays. So it's pretty, all right, that was really annoying. I hate when this happens. You see, I'm trying to wing it live, and when you're doing it on your own, this is what happens. All right, so what I was just saying about the fractal stuff is, if you're going through, digital is digital. In my world, my favorite thing is absolutely just playing through a real amplifier. But the digital stuff solves a lot of problems, and I think it could be really great. And people are like, oh man, the aux. Well, the aux sounds great, but it's digital. You're turning your guitar signal into a digital signal. So unless you've got a microphone in front of an amplifier, it's a digital representation or recreation of your guitar sound. People are like, oh, well, the aux does this. They're great. It's a great piece of gear. I use it all the time. But it's still digital. You're running your tube amp into a digital recreation of a cabinet. So does one sound appreciably better than something like a plug-in or a fractal or some sort of modeling unit? Not necessarily. So anyway, no sound. I love when it does that to me. This is JTM 45. Also, the other thing that we have to think about, just when I'm kind of going, talking about digital modeling stuff, is it's supposed to sound like a mic'd amplifier as opposed to an amplifier in the room, right? If you're choosing your cabinet with whatever IR impulse response was designed around the speakers that they were using or the microphones. So the IR to me is a huge component of the sound of your preset, right? So I can change an IR on my cabinets, and the guitar, this Marshall sound I've got going on right now, can sound completely different with a different cabinet, like it would in real life. So when people say like, oh, do you prefer your fractal to your two rocks? I'm like, well, in what situation? In a real life situation, no. But if I need to do some recording and I want to get a lot of stuff going on, and I live in New York, and oftentimes the fractal is the way to go, or some sort of unit that allows me to do it, which suddenly takes me into the digital world. Would you run your fractal on stage through a monitor? Yeah, and I've got a tour coming up when I go to the Czech Republic, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to end up going fractal, and I'm going to use a flat response speaker on the floor. Now, the reason for that, people may say like, well, why? There's a whole number of reasons. Primarily volume, and the world has changed a lot, unfortunately, for volume, or not, unfortunately. Thanks, Lyle's checking out. He's leaving. See you, buddy. So I like, the reason why I want to use a flat response speaker on this tour is we play very different size rooms all the time. And I rented a hot rod over there, and there was just so many volume issues. Some places we would play were theaters, and like if you clap your hands, it's like, and it was just hard to get the volume just right. Sometimes we play at really big rooms, and then the next night, since we're playing every town basically in the Czech Republic, you play a room that was like the size of my living room or something, which is, I love those gigs too. And then suddenly you're, oh my gosh, this is just, I can't control the volume. And then the tube amp doesn't sound good at a certain level. So there was all these things that were very, very frustrating to me, that I didn't have when I was touring with a rock band, where it was just like, this is the thing. And this music that I play, it's fusion-y stuff, and I play with guys who are a bit more of a jazz background. And, I want to be really respectful of the audience. I want them to experience a real gig, so I do need stage volume. But I don't want to be in a situation where playing one gig and these two people in the front row just with their heads over their ears. And that's very distracting to me. I didn't even think we were that loud. So I think you guys understand, hopefully, what I'm saying. So as I was talking with Matt Schofield when he was here, he's like, yeah, like if you get this dialed in right into a speaker, it's gonna probably sound better than the risk that you get from a house amp a lot of the times. And that's the case. I remember on the road, I would ask for like a Marshall 800 and you would get a 900, or you would get some janky modded thing that just sounded terrible with no master volume. And you're like, so this is about me trying to control the volume as much as possible. So the digital is great for consistency, accidentally nudging mic on the cap, all those things. It's going to sound the same thing every night. Sound guy's going to love us because we are our own sound guy. So my friend Walter will love me. He asked, and also it keeps the touring expenses way down. These tours don't really generate a lot of money. I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing it because I want to go out and play guitar. I just think this is going to be a better solution, and it's at the point, I feel like I'm giving like excuses. Look, in a perfect world, I'd love to have a Two-Rock on the road with me with my pedal board. That just can't really happen. I'm not going to ask Two-Rock to do that. It's a big pain. It's expense. It's a pain in the butt. And also, it's lighter. I don't know, guys. I don't want to sound like old guy, but I hate carrying gear at 56. Just don't want to do it. So, as my friend Tracy said once, it was perfectly loud. Great tone is usually loud. Great tone is usually loud and heavy, which is totally true. So here's my other chatting about this. If I'm going to do a gig and the other guitar player is using a real amp, there's no way I am going to use a digital situation. Just not going to do it. If with my trio, there's keyboards, which are basically always direct. There's the bass player who's got some stage volume, but he's very often going direct. And then the drummer. So as long as there's a stage volume, if I'm going direct with a good guitar sound, it's going to blend very nicely. If there's another guitar player on stage playing through a Marshall cranking, and I'm with this digital thing with a flat response speaker, blah blah blah. I'm gonna get killed. So I wouldn't do that. So two guitar players, unless we're both going digital or we're both going real amps. That's the only way I'm doing it. So Minako's Ox question. What are you hearing your tone through in your room? Speaker cab, stereo speakers? We're hearing it back. No, you're hearing it. I have studio monitors right here, and I'm running everything into my Apollo Twin, right? So everything runs into that. The aux is running into the Apollo on the SPDIF. The optical cable in, and everything is coming through studio monitors. And then you are going direct, so you're hearing a mixture of everything mixed together. My mic is on one channel, the guitar is on a different channel, and I have it sending to the production software. So you're hearing a mix that I've created. So anything you hear through this is going to be just incidental, like some string noise, but you're hearing the aux is totally silent itself. It's fully attenuated, and you're just hearing the fake cabinet coming through my speakers. Which flat response speaker did you pick? I know the guys are Fractal. So they're going to try to see what Red Sound could do for me in Europe. That's the one that they used to like to use. They're based in Italy. Might be cool. I'm happy to just buy one and leave it in my friend Armano's house in Italy for when I go over next time. He uses some digital stuff. He's got a home studio. One of my best friends. He can borrow my flat response speaker. I might just go with that one because a guy who you guys might know, Marco Fantone, who does a lot of Fractal stuff. He's from Italy. I tried it at NAMM, and we've talked a few times. He's like, just get this one. It sounds great, And so I'm going to go with the guys who are Fractal guys who really have a lot of experience. The Fender one looks really great and really cool. That's up in the running too. But the Fractal one is, like 22 pounds. It's small. I think it's going to be cool. As an older guy, there's nothing worse than a concert that's too loud. I take earplugs. I have tinnitus. So I never leave home without earplugs. They are in all my jacket pockets. They're in all my gig bags. I have multiple ones. I wear them in airplanes because airplanes are loud. I don't wear earbuds in any volume situation, like riding on the subway. Yeah, so I don't mess with my hearing because I got enough problems with the ringing. So I don't like playing too loud. I like playing to where the music should be. And I always wear earplugs anyway. And I remember the bass player was like, well, you're so loud. And then, why are you putting in earplugs? I'm like, well, because we have a drummer on stage. I have to be competing with the drummer, not competing, like fighting. I have to be somewhere with the drummer. There's nothing worse to me than a silent stage. Like, you're going to see a rock band. It was like, there's nothing coming off the stage. Like, that's the worst thing in the world. And as a performer, I want to be able to get feedback from my amp and feel this stuff. And you don't need to be extremely loud to do that. You just want to be at a volume where it feels like it. Even then, I still have to wear earplugs. And it's mostly because I already have the tinnitus. And it's also so easy for it to get worse. You know what I mean? Like, so I need to keep the volume at a certain level. So yeah, but I'm with you. I don't like going to a show that's too loud. It makes me crazy because there's no need for it. But also, like, when a show is too soft, it's a rock band largely. It's a Rocky Fusion thing. It's got to be at the volume it needs to be. And I remember they were kind of giving me a hard time because they were more of a jazz background about it being loud. I'm like, this is not loud. And then we had on 2 different occasions, we had a blues band open up for us who were loud. And I looked at them like, that's loud. And you're like, okay, you're right. You're totally right. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be me. I don't want to subject audiences to like excessive volume. I mean, what's the point of that? If people are leaving or covering their ears, then it's too loud. But if it's not loud enough where if it affects your performance because the volume is so low. I remember doing gigs in New York. Like, someone's like, oh, I remember when a guy came to a gig. Oh, I love your playing. I want you to play my restaurant. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you mean? So he's like, yeah, just do your thing. I love what you do. And you get there, and I knew it wasn't going to be loud, but it was basically, you just wanted a radio in the back. And he was like, oh man, it's too loud. I'm like, we're not even really playing. Like, this is crazy. So I did one gig and I was like, no, thank you. I'm not into doing this. So just get a radio and put it in the background, Okay. Frankly, I don't think the audience cares if it's a Turok or a Fractal, if I'm honest. Oh, you're absolutely right. You're 100% right, unless you're someone like Joe Bonamassa, who is known for playing this kind of gear or something. In the sense, and I mean this with all due respect to the audience, I don't care about the audience in that sense. I'm not using a Turok for the audience. I'm using it for me, that I feel like I can perform my best with something that I think sounds really good. So I feel like I have more of a chance of doing that with the Fractal at this point than a rental amp, and then trying to dial it in and deal with the volume issues that I was dealing with on that particular tour. When I was touring with Robin, he's loud, and we played bigger places. So they're not going to tell him to turn down. And when they did, they got an earful, which is always awesome. And so that was fine. I wouldn't use a Fractal in a situation like that because it's not the right amp. It's not the right tool for the job. And that's the way I'm looking at this. I think Fractals sound amazing. You hear them way more than you think you do. Way, way more. Everybody's using them on the road for a bunch of reasons. One, consistency of sound every night. They don't really break down. Way less expensive to cart around. So there's all these really, really big things. I think it was Justin Derrico from Pink was using his whole amp setup, and now he's using Fractal stuff because of all the above reasons. It's easier, So in this kind of situation, I'm looking forward to it, actually, to give it a shot. I've got a lot of really, I got a lot of cool support. I got my friend Johan over in Australia who helped me program all this stuff, uses it all the time. John Cordy has been helpful, the guys at Fractal. So, I got a pretty good, Leon Todd, if you check out his videos. My friend Angus Clark tours with one sometimes. So these are guys who have a lot of experience that have helped me go, oh yeah, this should be okay. All right. Let's see what I got here. Mina, that's how you run yours as well. Yeah, for sure. But so it's back to Mike, Dr. Mike. What I mean by the audience, I don't care about the audience. I care about the performance, and I want something that's going to allow me to perform to the way that I feel most confident. And if it's a really crappy sounding amp and trying to get this thing to sound good, or trying to get the volume to where someplace where I feel comfortable, that's going to ruin my performance. When I mentioned the T-Rock is I know what they sound like and know what my pedals sound like with them, and But if I can get anything that sounds good and makes the audience happy, that's cool. They're not coming for me for my gear. Like I said with Joe, if Joe showed up with a Tokai and a Line 6, people are like, where are the bursts? And those kind of things. What's your opinion on the Edge? He seems to get a lot of hate online. The guitar world community is in mind it would, but the guitar world seems to admire. That makes me crazy. You write as many hit songs as the Edge did, and then get back to me. You watch it might get loud. He's completely self-deprecating about the whole thing. He knows he's not a great guitar player, but he is one of the most copied guitar players. And he, I'm not a huge U2 fan, but I've seen him a bunch of times. Those are some of the best rock records, whether you like them or not. Joshua Tree, it's really hard to beat that as a rock record, isn't it? One of the seminal records of the 80s. And part of their sound, that Coldplay and all these things, if you ever listen to any kind of praise and worship music, it's all off of that. So his influence, I think he's brilliant. And I also appreciate that he does not try to step out of his lane in that sense. You know what I mean? Like, he's not trying to shred or something like that. He just plays perfectly. I really like them. I really like him. Well, I like them well enough. I think he's amazing. I really do. The imagination that he's got is really killer. And like I said, all those songs. Yep. Dr. Mike, Doctor, I get it. I always thought we bought gear for us, not for anybody listening to us. That's really true. Yeah. I mean, and that's fine. The audience doesn't care. Like, one guy said to me a while ago, he was kind of fairly indignant about it. Like, the audience doesn't care. I use a Fractal, I use a Helix plug straight in PA, and the audience doesn't care. Like, get over yourself. And I'm like, my performance is not for the audience, if that makes sense. Like, I'm trying to say my performance is for the audience, but my performance will be dependent upon what I play through. If it sounds terrible and doesn't feel good to me and I'm not happy, I'm not going to play well. Period. If I'm happy with the sound, the performance will just be better. So, the Edge is brilliant. Music isn't about being technically giant. All right, exactly. All right, I seem to be getting... All right, a little glitch right there. All right, my sound is off. If your sound is off, you won't play as well too. Getting little dropouts, it looks like. Who knows? With the online world. All right. I do want to say thanks to everybody. Any more questions before we check out? Before I go walk my dogs and stuff. All right. I got a little video I'll close out with. It's from Matt Schofield and I over at the Bitter End from the other night, playing my PRS into my T-Rock with my pedal board. I'll play that for you guys. All right, so if you like the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button. Please tell your friends. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, if you're here, you might have already, but please do. It really helps trying to build a channel, which is very difficult to do, to build a channel. When you're trying to do, I'm not complaining, when you're trying to do more educational based channel, and less, I try not to be too clickbaity and all those things like that. So yeah, just subscribe. Helps me out quite a bit, gets the videos recommended more. Tell your friends if you guys dig it. I appreciate it. My courses are, of course, the JM Guitar Lessons. Go over there. If you like this one, I got a flash sale on the Pentatonic Creativity, the minor edition, where I'm going through your minor pentatonic scale. And minor pentatonics, in a way you can use them in a different way other than playing your stock old blues licks, and a way you can mix them into your blues licks. All sorts of stuff going on. So please go over. And also, you have my free ebook on pentatonics, arpeggios unlocked, with a free mini course. And that's free. Check that out. Go over there. Just got to enroll for free, and then you get that. And just get on the mailing list when I have new courses come out. And there you go. So I got a video coming up on Friday. Might do the one with Matt. We did a cool one. We're talking about our favorite blues guitar players. I think I might do that one. And yeah. So let me see if I can get this thing to play. Got the video from the gig the other night. Okay, hold on. As we see, I had a few issues earlier. Let's see what we got here, video. All right. So thanks so much, everyone. I will see you next. Yeah, I'll be on next week. The week after that, I'm going to be down in Florida, but maybe I can do a live thing. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Please hang for the video. See ya.
Baby, how blue can you get?